The night the moon turned red, a lone rider followed a burned road and did not stop when the wind began to sound like a whispering crowd. He was a Ronin, a masterless samurai, named Jiro. His coat was dust gray, his sword plain and clean. Under the rolling clouds, the land showed its wounds, blackened fields, empty watchtowers, houses with doors hanging like broken teeth. War had passed through these valleys too many times to count. Jiro moved with the patience of a man who had run out of fear. He watched the sky, then the ditches, then the hilltops. He had learned long ago that danger traveled in silence and waited in ordinary places. By sunset, he saw lanterns ahead, small stars trembling near a river bend. A village clung to the slope there, roofs huddled against the wind. The wooden bridge across the water had a spine of missing planks. A bell hung above the gate, rust ringing it whenever the breeze grew bold. In the west, a stain crept across the full moon like a thumb over a lantern. The elders in 1,000 valleys would have a name for it, but every name meant the same thing, a blood moon, the warning that turns men's voices into whispers. Jiro crossed to the first house, tied his horse to a post, and left it with a nosebag. He felt eyes on him, thin children in doorways, a straw-capped farmer with a rake, 2 old women in matching dark shawls. The air smelled of river clay and smoke. He kept his hand near the guard of his sword but let his fingers hang loose. A man did not walk into a village like this with stiff shoulders if he wanted to live through the night. A woman stepped out from a tea house, carrying a tray with 2 cups and a pot. She had a small scar on her cheek and the steady look of someone who had worked through storms. "Traveler," she said, simple as a greeting can be. "You arrive on a strange night." "Strange nights make straight paths," Jiro said. His voice was steady, low. "My thanks for the water." She poured, watching him, and nodded toward the rising hill behind the village. "The shrine is up there. Do not pass it without a prayer. On nights like this, people believe the ground listens." "What do you believe?" Jiro asked, drinking. "That everyone is hiding something," she answered. "I'm Aya. I pour tea and keep folks from fighting in my doorway." She set down the empty pot. "And tonight, you were expected." Jiro's right hand drifted. "By who?" Aya lifted the tray. A small folded paper lay under the pot ring. She tapped it free and held it out. On one side, written with careful strokes, was a message. "Come alone to the hill shrine at the blood moon's peak. The red crane waits." Jiro flipped the note. A pressed crane feather clung there, thin as frost. A boy of 8 ran up, breathless with news. "They say he cut down 3 bandits without a scratch," the boy blurted, eyes wide. "Left a feather on each. The red crane is magic." Aya warned, placing a hand on the child's shoulder. "Let the man finish his drink." Jiro studied the feather, then the boy. "Magic is a word people use when a plan is hidden," he said. He folded the note and tucked it in his sleeve. "Tell me, do the dogs bark at the hills tonight?" "They barked before sunset. Then they stopped." Then, looked at Aya. "Then the bell rang without wind." Aya's mouth tightened. "It happens, sometimes." Jiro looked toward the hill, where the shrine roof made a dark triangle against the sky. "This red crane. He leaves feathers and challenges strangers." "Not strangers," Aya said. "Only men who carry themselves like you. Men who can be made into stories." Jiro nodded once. "Then he will get what he asked for." He found a place to sit inside the tea house near a back wall where his eyes could follow everyone and the door. He ate rice and fish. He listened to the gossip that flows through any valley at night. A warlord in the north had raised new banners. A road east had filled with soldiers. A local headman, Sato, had been keeping order with a heavy hand and heavy taxes. His daughter had married a quiet man from another province and never smiled since. The miller's storehouse was full though the people's bowls were not. A traveling priest had arrived 2 days ago and given prayers for silver. Simple things. And yet the room felt like a theater before the curtain rose. When the plates were cleared, Jiro walked the village. He tied fresh strips of cloth on the saddle, checked the horse's shoes, and hid a spare water gourd beneath the bridge. He visited the shrine while the sky dimmed into iron and then into dark. He ran his fingers along the stone steps. A thin dust powder lay there. He scraped a little and smelled it. Oil. Someone had brushed the steps to make footing treacherous. He knelt by the shrine and looked at the lanterns. They were strung lower than he would have chosen, where an archer could clip them from the ridge and send the place into shadow all at once. The bell rope had extra knots tied, new and tight, the knots would catch a blade. He smiled, very slightly. Someone had been busy. On the way back down, he passed the headman's house, where the shutters were half closed. Through the gap, he saw Sato standing with a man in a coarse robe. The man's head was shaved like a monk's, but his posture was wrong, his feet were too square, his hands too ready. A soldier dressed as a priest is still a soldier. Jiro kept walking, eyes forward, ears open. Behind him, the wind carried a piece of the monk's voice. While they look at the hill, we take the grain. We take the men who can carry, too. The warlord needs porters. Sato's voice rasped. And if the Ronin wins? Then he dies with an arrow from behind. The monk's tone was casual. That is the point of a crowd. Jiro did not slow. He counted 6 heartbeats to the corner and then turned, the face of a man looking for a place to sleep. By the river he found Ko sitting on the railing, legs swinging. The water had gone dark enough to drink the last light. Jiro joined him. For a few breaths they were 2 shadows watching a longer shadow. Jiro said, Ko, does your mother trust the headman? I trust Aya, the boy said. She says Sato tries to hold the walls together with angry words. She says angry words are thin rope. Wise woman, Jiro said. You won't die tonight, will you? Ko asked, as if asking a carpenter not to drop a board. I try not to make promises to the moon, Jiro said. But I promise I will not die cheaply. Ko looked up. What does that mean? It means I won't pay with my life for someone else's trick. The moon rose. A bite had already been taken out of it, dark as iron. The high clouds separated like a curtain. Jiro returned to the tea house. Aya handed him a cloth bundle. Rice balls. Dry plum. In case the night leans long. You were right, he said. Everyone is hiding something. And you? Aya asked. Jiro considered the small lie that had carried him across half the country. He carried a letter sealed with wax, tucked flat under the lining of his coat. It said a certain warlord had forged orders to burn 3 villages that had never raised a banner against him. It had names. It had a signature. It would topple a man who liked to set fire to families and call it law. He was supposed to give it to a spy at the coastal shrine by the 2nd night of the red moon. The note in his sleeve challenged him to a duel at the same hour. I am hiding a purpose, he said. And a piece of paper that makes men do foolish things. Aya's eyes held his. Then you already know tonight is a net. I do, Jiro said. The question is which direction it pulls. He left before she could answer. On the path, he passed the gate where Sato stood with 2 torchbearers. The headman put on a good smile. Our guest goes up the hill, Sato said. May your sword keep its edge. It will, Jiro said. The steps to the shrine glowed in torchlight. People had gathered at a respectful distance, far enough to claim they were only there to pray. On the ridge, a few silhouettes lined the rock edge. The lanterns swayed. The bell shook itself with a small sound, as if afraid to speak up. The blood moon climbed higher, a deepening red bruised by shadow. Jiro stood at the top of the steps and let his breath slow. He set the rice bundle behind the bell post. He unclasped his coat and folded it on the shrine step. He tightened his belt, checked the straps of his sandals, wiped each hand on his sleeves. Then he waited. The red crane came without footsteps. One moment the shrine courtyard was empty, the next a figure stood there, slim, wrapped in dark cloth, face covered by a simple mask painted with a red bird. No dramatic cape, no screaming horns, no heavy armor. Just balance. The figure's sword was already drawn and already still. "You came," the red crane said, the voice low and hard to place. "Not young, not old. Not friendly, not cruel. You received my feather." "I did," Jiro said. "I came alone, as asked. Before we begin, let me ask one thing." "Why me?" "Because someone said your name as if it weighed something," the red crane replied. "Because the knight asked for it." Jiro nodded. "Someone asked for more, too. Look to the ridge." The red crane didn't look. The mask didn't flicker. "The ridge has always been there." "Good," Jiro said. "Then we understand each other." They drew close, two shadows under a red lamp. The first strike was a test. Jiro stepped forward, a short cut aimed not at hitting but at measuring. The red crane answered with a small deflection and a second stroke that would punish a man who reached too far. They turned with each other, the way a hawk turns with a crow that refuses to be chased away. The air between them snapped and sealed. The sound made the crowd below hold its breath. There was no shouting, no boast, no crash of shields. The fight sounded like a broom on stone, like rain under a roof. Clean, quick, sharp. They moved around the bell rope. Jiro used its knotted length to hide a foot, then to block a cut he didn't want to take on his blade. The red crane slashed at a lantern string on purpose, sending the paper globe drifting down and casting wild shadows over the steps. The red of the moon deepened. On the ridge, an archer took aim. At the third exchange, both fighters saw it at once, a glint in the black, the breath of a bowstring. The red crane's head turned a finger's width. An arrow hissed. Jiro stepped in and half-turned, letting the shaft skip past his sleeve. He felt the wind of it on his wrist. The red crane had already dropped, blade up, the arrow cutting across the mask and nicking paint. A white line appeared in the red. The second arrow came fast, aimed lower. The red crane kicked the bell rope aside and lunged toward Jiro, not to strike him, but to shove him out of the line. Both blades crossed, then flared apart. A third arrow sang. The red crane pivoted and cut it in half. The halves spun and punched harmlessly into the dirt. Jiro's eyes flicked once to the ridge and caught a silhouette, the robe, the wrong posture, the soldier monk. He saw Sato below, looking up and trying to look surprised. He saw, too, what others could not, a shadow slipping around the back of the shrine with a loop of rope. Someone meant to take him from behind while the arrows kept him dancing. He breathed out. He spoke in a voice meant only for the one who shared the wind with him. "They will kill us both," Jiro said, "unless we make them choose." The red crane's mask dipped. "You expected it." "Of course," Jiro said. "Didn't you?" A pause, thin as a blade. "They hold my sister," the red crane said, almost without sound. "They promised her freedom if I took your life." "Promises like that are knives with two edges," Jiro said. "Help me cut the hand that holds them." The red crane shifted grip, a small change, but a signal. The next exchange turned into a show. They clashed with brighter sparks, moving wider, drawing a circle that opened a view to the ridge. Together they drove toward the lantern strings. On Jiro's third feint, he sliced the last cords. Darkness spilled across the courtyard. The crowd gasped. The archers on the ridge fired blind. "Left," Jiro said, and they spun. The next minute was a moving puzzle. Jiro broke toward the rocks, blade low, cutting at shadows. The red crane darted behind the shrine, where the rope man waited, and the rope man found himself quickly tied by his own tool. From the ridge, the monk shouted orders that couldn't be seen. Sato shouted something else entirely to cover himself. In the black, Ko's small voice started a bell ringing by accident or fate, and the bell's steady sound gave Jiro a map in his head. A torch flared. The monk appeared, flanked by 2 men with spears. "This duel is over," he called. "The tax grain is ours. The warlord thanks you for the show." Jiro stepped into the torchlight. He looked like a statue the fire had decided to visit. "The grain belongs to those who grew it," he said. The monk smiled. "Tonight it belongs to whoever leaves the hill alive." "Then it will not belong to you," Jiro said. The spearmen moved in, eager to make a neat end of a complicated night. Jiro let the first one's spear glance off stone, then drove the haft into the second one's thigh. He didn't kill them, he broke their timing and their spirits. In the same breath, the red crane appeared on the monk's other side with quiet steps, a presence the torchlight could not catch until the last moment. The monk jumped back, tripped on a knot in the bell rope, and lost his balance just long enough for Jiro to sweep his feet. He went down hard, breath gone, the torch bouncing in the dirt. A horn sounded from below. The miller's storehouse doors rattled. Men tried to haul sacks into the night while a handful of villagers threw rocks and words. Ko grabbed a wind chime from the shrine gate and shook it like a battle flag. "Crane," Jiro said. "Go," the red crane answered. "Free them. I'll hold the ridge." Jiro raced down the steps 2 at a time, jumping the oiled spots he had marked in memory. The crowd scattered to make way and then closed behind him like water. He reached the storehouse as 3 mercenaries tried to carry a young woman out by the arms. Her face was pale with fear, but she walked with her feet under her, not limp. "I am fine," she kept saying, as if trying to convince the knight. Jiro swept the first man's legs, stepped past the second, and took the third's wrist in a grip that made knives clatter out of hands. "Your warlord can carry his own rice," Jiro said. He moved with precise force, bones would ache tomorrow, but no one would not see dawn. Behind him, a voice like a cracked bell called, "Stop." Headman Sato stood with a rope around his own daughter's neck. The rope's other end wound around his right hand, his left hand held a short knife. His face was a lesson in fear turning into foolishness. "She is mine to protect," Sato said. "She goes with us. The grain goes. The Ronin stays as a mark for the hillside crows." "Father," the daughter said, "steady. Please." The crowd went still. The wind made a sound like paper being crumpled. Jiro set his blade tip down. He raised his empty hand. "Sato," he said, calm. "Think. Your rope is a poor shield against a village that will have to live with what you do. Let the girl go." "I did what I had to do," Sato said, eyes too bright. "The soldiers promised." "The soldiers promised to men like you," Jiro said. "And when they take everything, they will say it was your idea." On the hill, the bell began a slow, steady ringing. The red crane was keeping time. Sato's breath stuttered. His hand on the knife shook, then steadied. His eyes moved to the monk on the ridge, who had staggered to his feet and now screamed orders that no one followed. His eyes moved to Aya, who stood by her door, arms crossed, full of a silence that could divide mountains. "Please," Sato's daughter said, softer. "We can make this right. Not this way." Sato looked old all at once. He let go. The rope fell. The knife fell. He sank to his knees and covered his face. From the ridge, the monk drew a horn and blew a hard note for retreat. His men began to back away, but the path down was crowded by villagers who had found their courage and their anger. The red crane stepped to cut that path into smaller pieces, small enough for people with sticks to carry. One man could still break the night. He came from the shadow behind the shrine, the last and boldest of the mercenaries, with a bow strung and an arrow drawn so far that the wood hummed. He aimed at the red crane's back. Ko saw it first. "Crane!" the boy cried. The red crane spun, too late to close the distance. Jiro moved, feet digging, hand reaching for what he knew was there. The bell rope swung on its iron ring. He caught it and threw it in a loop. It caught the archer's arm just as he loosed. The arrow jerked wild and cracked into the bell with a shout of metal that shook dust from the posts. The archer stumbled forward, tangling his own legs in the rope, and the red crane stepped in and struck his wrist. The bow fell. The archer fell with it. The knight let go of its breath. The monk looked around, measured the odds, and did the bravest thing he had done all evening: he ran. The ridge swallowed him. The remaining hirelings followed. Jiro stood still while the bell slowed, each swing smaller than the last. Aya walked to the shrine yard with a lamp. She set it on the step with the care of someone laying down a newborn. If the moon had not turned red, she said, men would have blamed something else for what they planned to do. Some nights only show the truth. Ko ran to the red crane, who had already stepped back into shadow. "You saved him," the boy said. "You saved us." The red crane looked at Jiro. The mask lifted a finger's width, enough for a voice to carry without the cloth. "You have a paper in your coat," the red crane said. "The kind that burns men without lighting any fires. They wanted it. They wanted you. Your duel was a parade to pull eyes away from the rope around this village's throat." "I know," Jiro said. He touched the hem of his coat and felt the flat, hard lines sewn under the cloth. "And you?" "They held my sister," the red crane said. "They said they would free her if I painted the steps with your blood." The voice grew tight. "But they moved her after I agreed. They meant to pay me with a blade across the back. A man who breaks promises to others will break his promises to you." I remembered that too late. Jiro looked past the mask and saw a shape of a face he almost knew. He could have asked. He did not. "Where is she now?" Aya answered from the edge of the lamp's circle. "Here." The young woman from the storehouse stepped forward, hair coming loose, eyes alight. She ran into the red crane's arms. For a moment the mask tilted toward the sky, and the relief was strong enough to make the night smell sweet. "Thank you," she said to Jiro without letting go. I thought. "It's done," Jiro said. "Keep your door locked tonight. Tomorrow, unlock it for neighbors." Headman Sato rose, tears cutting clean tracks on a dusty face. "I'll answer for what I agreed to," he said. "I will stand before everyone in the morning. I will open the mill and let them count the sacks." Aya's eyes did not soften. "You will. And you will not speak for a while. The village will speak, and you will listen." Sato bowed, a real bow, the kind that says a man finally understands he has been wrong. On the ridge, the red crane finished tying the last of the hired men who had not run as fast as they believed they could. The village, like a tired animal, sat down in its own skin. The moon, still red, began to lighten around the edges, as if a painter were washing the color off with a cloth. Jiro fetched his coat and swung it over his shoulders. He tucked Aya's rice bundle into the sash. He stood at the bell and set it swinging once, gently, a farewell more than a warning. The red crane approached. Hands met, a warrior's clasp. For a breath, the mask tilted again. Jiro saw eyes with old stories in them. "In another life, we would have killed each other for honor," the red crane said. "Tonight we killed an idea instead." "We killed a plan," Jiro said. "Plans can grow again." "Not if you deliver your letter," the red crane answered. "He will fall if the truth reaches the right altar." "It will," Jiro said. "Then we will both have work again," the red crane said. The sister came to stand beside the red crane. Ko hovered nearby, unwilling to let the moment finish. Aya stood with her lamp, the circle of light smaller now, as if the night were at last ready to go to sleep. "What will they call this?" Ko asked. "What will they say about the red moon?" "They'll say two blades did not follow the script," Aya said. "They'll say the bell saved a village," Sato's daughter added. "They'll say a boy shouted at the right time," Jiro said. The red crane tilted the mask to the boy. "They'll say the red crane and the Ronin fought a duel that turned into a story." Jiro nodded. "And then the story turned into a road." The red crane stepped back, and the darkness took the figure the way the sea takes a boat that knows where it is going. The mask's red bird faded into black. Jiro watched until watching was only memory. He picked up the crane feather from his sleeve, placed it on the shrine step beside Aya's lamp, and turned toward the river road. Dawn found him already a long walk away, the road curling through fields that would grow green again if given any mercy at all. The moon sat pale behind thin clouds, harmless now, the way a bad dream looks after breakfast. He moved easily, the kind of easy that comes after tension and before the next duty. The letter under his coat seemed heavier than paper and lighter than a sword. Behind him, the village put the world back in its place. The mill's doors opened. Sacks were rolled out and counted in daylight. The mercenaries who had failed to flee were given food and a hard choice: work to repair the bridge or leave without pay. Sato stood in the square and accepted the cold weight of many eyes. Aya poured tea for those who had not slept. Ko hung the wind chime back on the gate and gave it a final shake, just to hear it say, "Enough." As for the red crane, the stories disagreed. Some said the masked fighter vanished with the last of the red. Some swore a figure helped fix a fence at noon, hammer in hand. Others swore nothing at all, only that the hill seemed taller afterward and that no arrow had touched the bell again. Jiro reached the coastal shrine before sunset and found the woman waiting by the steps, a courier with road dust on her sleeves and a seal ring on her thumb. He gave her the letter. She broke the wax, read, and let out a breath like a man setting down a full bucket. "This will end him," she said. "It will start something else," Jiro said. "Everything does," she answered. "Will you stay to watch it?" "No," he said. "I have another village to disappoint by not dying in front of them." She laughed, the kind that bears clean teeth and clean purpose. "Then go. You'll find the warlord's messengers on the east road tomorrow. They'll have trouble believing you walk faster than lies." "I've had practice," Jiro said. He stepped back. "If someone asks who delivered the letter, tell them a man who kept his promise to a red moon." That night, for the first time in a long time, Jiro slept without dreaming of fire. Somewhere north, a man who had called himself a monk counted his lost choices and prepared to tell his warlord a story that would not be believed. Somewhere between, a mask hung from a peg while a sister slept beside it, a hand curled around a crane feather as if it were a key. The blood moon had come and gone, but the night did not forget. It kept a small echo of bell sound in its pocket and brought it out later when people were sure nothing remained of that hour. The echo made them tilt their heads and smile without knowing why. The story of the Ronin and the blood moon moved down the road faster than horses because it did not need sleep. And when people told it, they changed little things to suit their fear or their courage. They shortened the rope around the girl's throat because they did not like to remember it. They made the steps higher because they wished to be braver. They turned the monk into a snake, the village into a stone, the boy into a drum. But no one changed the part where two blades crossed and then chose not to finish what the night demanded. That part was the hook the tail hung from, and it would not break. In time, fields grew where ashes had been, and children learned how to spot liars by the way they held their shoulders. Jiro moved on, as men like him always do. The red crane found a different hill to watch. The bell stayed where it was and rang only when people asked it to, never by itself again. They say that on some autumn evenings, when the moon rises a little too red for comfort, a wind chime will sing without being touched, and a crane feather will fall on a doorstep that has not seen a feather in years. If that happens, keep your lanterns low and your purpose clear. The world is still watching. So are those who keep it honest with quiet blades. Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, please subscribe to Samurai Tales for more legends of honor, mystery, and steel.